Welcome to GTC. So good to see you here. AI is reshaping not only research and engineering and enterprise. AI is having a huge impact on higher education. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The role of AI in higher education infrastructures for education and also for research and other mission-related activities that the universities have to pursue. We're very fortunate to have a stellar panel, and I want to bring the panel out, and then I'll introduce them. Please come out, panel. So let's sit down. So first, I'm very happy to introduce Chris Malachowski, NVIDIA co-founder and technology leader from the very beginning of NVIDIA. Chris has a passion for higher education and AI and what high-performance computing can bring. Also, we have available Brian Stone, who is the Chief of Staff of the National Science Foundation, acting in the role of the director. We have Deborah Caldwell, who is the Vice Chancellor for Research at the University of Tennessee and a leader in the regional activities there. And Teresa Mayer, who is the Vice President for Research at Carnegie Mellon, who is very much a leader in activities at Carnegie Mellon. So there's a tremendous urgency around this topic today. What we're talking about has critical importance. There's a need to get a curriculum in place. Also important that we are able to get infrastructure on the campuses so that educators and researchers can participate fully in the innovation ecosystem that's going on in the world today and continue to drive things forward in a very, very, very important area. So much innovation comes from higher education and research, and of course, higher education research is adjacent to all of our enterprises and industry. And so it's just critically important that they're able to fully participate. So our goal today is to have a candid, forward-looking conversation. What does this new era of AI and accelerated computing demand from us as researchers, institutions, and policymakers? How do we get the necessary infrastructure into the hands of students and professors at our universities? And what new partnerships are emerging, and what still needs to be done so that we can, that still needs to be invented that we haven't created yet to fill the gaps. So with that, let's get started. So my first question is for Chris. Chris, you've seen NVIDIA and accelerated computing from the very beginning. When you look at today's AI and computing landscape, what feels fundamentally different than, say, in the past? What feels fundamentally different about this moment? And what does it mean for universities and national research agencies over the next 5 or 10 years?
Okay, well, let's take those in order. As a technological revolution, this is broader, it's deeper, it's more impactful to more people than anything. I've been in this 40-something years. So just in scale, and is one element. The other one is in the speed of adoption or disruption. It is infiltrated so much, so quickly, taken over the public dialogue of technology and jobs and workforce, and that's unique. Most other things, at least PC and iPhones and apps and social media came on slowly and affected a segment and then grew. This just seems to be splat. It's everywhere. So I think that that to the first point. What's different is also that the perception of what AI is, I think, is a little bit distorted in the public's mind. It's a chatbot. It's a place you type. And I think that really underrepresents the potential of AI, which is going to be the decision support system for just about everything we do, and should be, because it brings expertise we may not have, and can gather intelligence that's hard to keep in one person's head. So I think it's a challenge for, the educators. I think, tasks are likely to get automated, but not judgment and not, the human element. And now you got to teach everything you used to have to teach. And now you got to teach judgment and how to manage agents and how to use these new tools to your advantage and not be used by them, I guess. So.
Maybe one of our university leaders would like to contribute to that question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in.
Yeah.
And just to add to what Chris shared, I think so many people think that AI is about large language models, and it's so much more than that, right? Accelerated compute has provided the scale that now allows us to train foundation models for science, foundation models for robotics, and just how quickly we're seeing the ability to now leverage AI in the context of physical AI, where we have systems that are interacting with the real world in very complex environments. And the power now of being able to bring physics-based models to problems where data is very sparse, right? We don't have the training data. And this concept of sim to real just taking off like crazy. So it's been exciting. Carnegie Mellon's had 3 startup companies just within the last couple of years, Skilled AI, Genesis AI, and Field AI, that are all really kind of targeting this generalized brain for physical AI. So there's so many different areas where we need the scale.
Yeah. I'd add a little bit to that, Jack. I think the pace of discovery and innovation definitely really accelerating now. I think we're also thinking about how AI has to be incorporated both into learning and be the subject of learning across all domains in the university environment. I know at UT we established our first sort of faculty governance committee around AI in 2022, really to get faculty, not just from our engineering and computer science programs, but from programs throughout the university, thinking about how AI was relevant to their students, to their programs. We've created a Gen AI Faculty Fellow program that actually encourages faculty to incorporate AI into the curriculum, encourages them to team teach. We put together teams, this sort of trailblazer faculty who are very excited about what AI is going to do for their discipline, as well as perhaps some healthy skeptics who might be worried about doing this, team teaching, exploring the sort of impact on learning in our student populations, and making sure that every one of our students, when they graduate, has AI competencies, understands why AI is relevant to their field of study, and is ready to go out into the workforce prepared to use AI. We hear that from employers who hire our students very, very often. The employers we work with tend to be more interested in sort of the workforce implications than discovery to begin with. So that's been really, really critical to us, is sort of making sure that we are integrating AI throughout the academic enterprise.
Thank you. Brian, I'd like to come to you next. The National Science Foundation is a premier federal funder of science and technology in general, and AI research and AI research infrastructure in general, in particular. From your vantage point in the federal government, what are the top priorities and bets that the nation needs to make in AI and advanced computing infrastructure, and how should universities and industry align with those priorities?
Great. Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having us here. Let me just say, because I'll say it up front, and NSF is very grateful for the partnerships that we have with NVIDIA. You all are just phenomenal partners at every level, and it's great to be here at the GTC. Let me just say, NSF has been around for over 75 years, and we make long-term bets on technology and innovation space. And in the case of things like AI, people say, well, how do we get to this point? We got to this point by years and years, decades of thoughtful investment and moving the ball forward. And it's great when you see these technologies get to the point where people are saying, wow, it's in my phone, or I'm using it every day. That's success for us. I'm going to add to what Chris said. I think this inflection point is because we've reached that point where we're all using AI on a daily basis. And I think that when we talk about the kind of bets going forward in the future, like what both Teresa and Deborah are saying is 100% correct. We have to do everything that we can to integrate AI into the disciplines that we support. We need to make sure that people have the skill sets and the competencies to do it. NSF has been making some pretty major investments over the last 6 or 7 years. I know in 2019, for example, we launched our AI Institutes program, and we have 29 of them today. We have 29 institutes. We've got over $300 million in private contributions to that, which is one of the other things that we like to see. NSF likes to put in money, and we like to see that matched by contributions, either from private or philanthropy, to make it a bigger enterprise. In the case of the AI Institutes, it's really hitting a sweet spot for us in this concept of regional innovation. So, we have our new Technology Innovation and Partnerships Directorate. I say it's new, but it's like 4 years old now, so that's still new for us. But TIP and also even the rest of NSF is very much unlocking these regional area focuses. So, for example, if you're someone, we're going to talk about the 50-state solution, but if you're somebody that lives in Iowa, you may care about agriculture a lot more than you care about other things. And I think what we're finding is universities in these areas, which already serve as kind of the anchor points and the powerhouses to drive the economy, they're able to tap into AI and make it relevant for the people in the areas that they serve. And I think that's one of the things that's the most exciting for us. The other piece that's very critical, I mentioned the workforce piece. All of the things that we're doing, it's activating education at all levels. It's at the four-year university levels. We've had tremendous interest from community colleges. I mean, we were just down in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago with one of our regional innovation engine site visits. We had all of the community colleges from South Carolina and North Carolina there, talking about what NSF is going to do to make their lives better and help them, do better. It was focused on power, but how they're going to create more jobs. We don't typically focus on, we don't wake up and say, how many jobs are we going to create today at NSF? But that's the kind of impact that we're starting to have, and that's what's really exciting for us. So investments in regional technology hubs, investments in personnel, we think are the most critical.
I'll just comment there from partnerships from industry, having a focus on regional economic development provides a focus point for us to engage, because it brings a set of priorities to a university that otherwise is doing, in some sense, everything, right, in science and education and technology. And we very much appreciate the opportunity to focus on what your priorities are, because then we can focus that interaction and hopefully demonstrate, in some reasonable time period, a return on our mutual investment. Super. So back to Deborah and Teresa. What's your comment about this the idea of regional focus for AI investment and a way of moving that forward in our universities and in the ecosystem around them?
So I think NSF has done a really fabulous job in helping universities think more strategically about regional partnerships. I think TIP has really had huge impact in that realm here in the United States. In Tennessee, we formed a consortium. It's called AI Tennessee. And to Brian's point, it's a consortium that includes all of the colleges and universities in the state of Tennessee, our technical colleges, our community colleges, and our four-year institutions. So we're working together to figure out how we make sure that every Tennessean has the ability to develop AI competencies and is confident in their use. It also has a research and innovation component, and it's very much built on a backbone of public-private partnerships. I think here in the US, for sure, there's much more focus on public-private partnerships today than there was 10 years ago, and I think that's very, very healthy. It brings into the ecosystem discussions the private sector, helping them understand their responsibilities to discovery and innovation, US competitiveness, the development of a competitive workforce. I think really, really important. So we're really excited in Tennessee about this focus on regional innovation partnerships. It has enabled activities that, quite frankly, wouldn't have happened without it, much stronger connections with our community and technical colleges, and the sharing of expertise. Like the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, we're the land-grant university in the state of Tennessee. We have lots of expertise in AI. Our colleagues in the community and technical colleges maybe don't have so much. So our faculty, our graduate students, our postdocs with AI competencies going out into those colleges, really, really important for building our innovation base, our innovation capacity in AI.
Mm-hmm. Deborah, would you like to comment?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm just going to start by telling a little story. You know, Pittsburgh, with the steel industry, Pittsburgh built the nation. And then Pittsburgh collapsed in the 80s, but left behind a very strong manufacturing base. But at that point, the collapse was so severe that all the nation, the region, the state, and the local government came together and said, we're going to take an EDS and MED strategy, you know, given the presence of University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, many other universities, a very robust community college. And that drove a renaissance, that vision to pull together. And it's one of the few cities outside of the coasts that now has a growth about, you know, starting about a decade ago in the innovation economy. So it is, you know, truly an example of what so many of the initiatives that are really at the forefront right now kind of got off to an early start, robotics, AI. Now we have this very, very interesting mix of the fusion of a deep manufacturing base together with the high-tech industries of the future. And so that leads to a very bright future as we think about now the urgency to build out manufacturing or rebuild out manufacturing capacity, but through a very new lens. And just to give you a couple of examples of partnerships that are really making a difference, I'm going to highlight the NVIDIA tech community in AI and robotics. It was the first tech community in the world recognizing this very, I think, interesting and important fusion. We have launched a joint partnership between HPE, Ansys, and Synopsys, NVIDIA, to really think about how do we blend all of the things that we've been talking about. That is also built on now the importance of what we're talking about, infrastructure at scale. The urgency in the U.S. right now, we need to move swiftly and with urgency. And then finally, the importance of, as Deb and others have said, of being deeply community engaged. It is even more important now as the public is fearing the loss of jobs due to the explosion of AI, that we really double down K through 12 and into the community. And you know, that's just been so key. We've taken an abandoned steel mill with very significant support from our philanthropic organizations, and we are driving the future, but we're doing it in a way that's deeply community engaged.
Thank you. Chris, I'm going to come to you with a question next, but I want to say to the audience, we are going to have some time for a Q&A at the end, so please have your thinking caps on and think of one or two questions that we can, we'll save time at the end for you to ask from the floor. So Chris, I know you've taken a real interest and some strong action in engaging regionally in your personal life. Would you comment on your thoughts and experiences in encouraging universities and regional economic development from AI investments?
Yeah, I'll tell a story. Went to the University of Florida, married a gal from there. Certainly have ties to the region. After a long courtship, finally got around to giving back and paying my good fortune forward. And this is late 2010s, 2018, 2019. Ultimately, we gifted a supercomputer, a big AI supercomputer, to the University of Florida. And a little fortuitously, I didn't give it to the engineering department, I gave it to the university, which had the nice ramification of the university deciding, this is 2019, early 2020, this is COVID. AI was not that big a deal yet, at least the impact wasn't being felt. I'd been lecturing them to get in front of it before it got on them. And because I gave the gift to the university, they turned around and committed, just like we're just hearing, to teach AI literacy in every department. Big R1, a comprehensive university. They're outputting something like 10,000, AI literate kids in every discipline since then. There were land grant, like we heard. Land grants have this obligation and incentive, I guess, to be part of the economics of their state. They offered it for use by every researcher in the state, same terms as if you were an on-campus researcher. They offered it free for educational use. You're a high schooler and you want to run on the supercomputer, great. Your professor gives you assignments. They developed all this curriculum. The state, at 2020, you can imagine there wasn't a whole lot of AI faculty or AI literate faculty. The state ended up putting in a couple $100 million over 10 years to fund 100 faculty across the university complex. And then you get to the end, they're willing, and they extended the use of the machine to the entire SEC, by the way, and all the historically black schools and minority schools. And then, turns out they're willing to give all that away and to anybody who wants it. I feel fortunate that I was observant enough to recognize this as what was potentially a model, because I was worried, just like we heard, that if we don't get in front of AI, yes, you could displace jobs. Yes, it could, the rhetoric would get ahead of the reality and it would stymie progress. So I've taken it upon myself. Using my platform as NVIDIA co-founder, where I can get myself into places maybe others can't. And I've been offering I've gone to 30-something states, and I'm willing to pitch a benefactor in each state, or benefactors, to gift a machine like we did to their, whatever the school that's most appropriate, or set of schools, lobby their governors and legislators to get behind it, to make a public-private consortia to help them help themselves. It's been very well received, and it's addressing all the things we just heard. It's good for certainly great for research, but it's good for the communities, it's good for the students, it's good for employment. I think UF doubled or tripled their placement statistics, doubled or tripled their research dollars coming in. Impacting the state economy. And I figure every state can do this. Every state has somebody willing to give some number of dollars to promote the football team, or endow a building or a program. Every state has issues and needs that they could focus these machines on. And it turns out the machine is really just a catalyst. I mean, it's a piece of iron. It's what you do with it that's kind of magical, and I think that's what NSF's magic over the years has been: motivating, thoughtful inquiry and progress, and so 50. I'm hoping to get all 50 states, maybe some territories too.
Great. Jensen painted a verbal picture in his keynote on Monday of an AI factory where you plug the AI infrastructure into power and shell, and revenues come out the other end, right? So money comes out the other end. That's very compelling. And that's a simple way of describing what's going on in the enterprise, right, is going on with the business. But universities don't participate in the same kind of business model, right, where they have a product that is sellable in dollars, right? They're enriching people by education. They're doing research in the public interest that's sometimes well in advance of any business model that would be able to harvest the intellectual property in that way. So to be sure, this infrastructure shows up as an expensive investment. It's been a challenge for many of us. So let's try to take that topic on. What kinds of models do we need in order to have a greater availability of research, of research infrastructure, AI infrastructure, available to our university professors, and therefore to their students and research staff? What do we have today, and then what can we do in the future that's maybe increasing our effectiveness of that, getting that infrastructure in their hands?
Well, let me just I'm not that conversant in what's happened before, but I will tell you that putting these capabilities in the hands of the leadership with the freedom to do with it as strategic and important things for their institutions and their states seems to be transformative. These are expensive things, and I'm now getting kind of good at it, I think, but talking, private money, private donors into supporting these efforts, it's really high impact. It's actually been a remarkably easy sell. Though I'd like to use the occasion, last night, basically, I got the word that NVIDIA is going to back these initiatives to match the donors, basically match the donors' contribution with discounts, and provide our entire world-class software stack to universities free to use to promote this stuff. We'll also prioritize access to our technology to promote the U.S. economy and the U.S. infrastructure. So I don't know the other models. I believe this is an effective model, and I'd like everybody to at least consider it.
Jack, if I could just, if you don't mind, I'll add, one of the things that NSF is doing is we are operating what's called the National AI Research Resource, or NAIR. It's in the White House AI Action Plan. It's one of the things that we're doing as part of our contribution there. The kinds of things that we're talking about, this is our response to that. It's been I think you and I were both at the NAIR meeting last week in DC. It's a partnership between, we've got over 24 companies that are contributing resources, NVIDIA being one. Thank you very much. And also thank you for upping the contribution. So it sounds like a great opportunity going forward. It's really a tremendous opportunity for the research community to kind of unlock some of the things that they're doing. We've got over $300 million in contributions from industry. And I guess the piece that's the most exciting is, when Chris was talking about, like when we talked back in 2020 about, putting we want to put a supercomputer in at Florida. And like he said, we were not thinking about it in the context of AI. Now everything, we are thinking about everything in the context of AI. And it's things like we have to make these resources available to the researchers to figure out what they can do with them. I mean, there are over 600 projects currently in the NAIR. The vast majority of them are not doing AI research. I think, 40% of them, something like that, are doing actual AI research. The other 60% are doing things like material science research, geophysics, atmospheric stuff. I mean, it's the whole thing that we would expect. So when we start talking about AI for science, that's where we're starting to do this. So we have to make these available. The best part about the NAIR is it doesn't matter where you are. You can get access to this. Adding more, adding more capability in each state is just going to increase that. So from our standpoint, the 50-state solution is great because that is just going to put more compute cycles in the hands of people that will figure out for us what we should be doing with this. That's unlocking discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
I think that in many states at the moment, the constraint is access to the AI compute capabilities and the software stack, right? So the ability to have access to those types of resources will be transformative in some states. There is no doubt about it. It will be transformative in my state. And so I think that to start with, the biggest challenge for the universities and colleges and K through 12 institutions who we should extend these types of capabilities to as well, and will be how to provide the services that help the individuals in those institutions use these capabilities well to their optimal impact, and to build a sort of desire to push AI forward in the state, and to help our companies understand the impact that these tools can have on their competitive advantage. Jack, you and I have talked before about and Teresa mentioned some of the startups that CMU has birthed, right? We have a number of startups who would really love to have access to these types of capabilities, but don't have that access. How do we make sure that in our regional innovation ecosystems that any state resource is accessible to those types of organizations too? I think really huge impact in a state's economic development opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Teresa?
This question is so important right now. And I just want to, again, acknowledge the critical importance that federal investment is going to continue to play in both the infrastructure needs that we're talking about, but also basic science. And so, again, we're so grateful to Congress for providing bipartisan support, for NSF and many of the other federal agencies. 40 years ago, with support from NSF, University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon became home to one of the first national supercomputing centers, and still going strong today. And I think one of the most important things, again, that we've talked about is that, unlike other supercomputing facilities that may be available to a small number of researchers, these have supported tens of thousands of students at all levels, from all different colleges, community colleges, and others. And that has been so critically important to the innovation ecosystem. Now what we're finding is that even that alone does not bring the scale. NAIR is a critical component to that, but we need to go further, faster, with urgency. And so the innovative models and thinking about the ability to co-invest, Brian brought it up, Chris brought it up, is really the trajectory that we need to go. And as many states, again, really supercharged by the work in Florida, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has come together to start a Keystone AI and Quantum initiative. And for the first time in history, I think we've confirmed this, all 7 R1 institutions came together, the leadership came together to make a commitment with a signed MOU that we would work together. And so the universities also can make financial contributions because we already make contributions. They've just been bespoke, servers sitting under desks. And now faculty are coming and saying, I can't get my work done with a server under my desk. And they're really willing to buy in. So the ability to bring federal resources, industry resources, philanthropic resources to get the scale and then also enable our startup companies is really very, very critically important to the future of our nation.
Thank you. I'd like to respond. NVIDIA has very much appreciated the invitation to participate in the NAIR pilot, engaged us very effectively just over 2 years ago with a broad spectrum of opportunities for how we could engage. Jensen supported this idea with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and we've learned a lot in the process, and I think it's been a mutual benefit along the ways. On the topic of support for startups emerging out of universities, I think this is something that we need to have a big conversation about. I think there's a lot of universities that are very proud of what they're doing in terms of incubating these startups from their companies, but not always is there a plan for how they're going to get access to compute. And I can tell you, because of the global scope that NVIDIA has, other countries that are focused on a knowledge economy are having plans so that the startups associated with their premier universities have, in the near term, have access to compute. And I view it as a gap often in the US innovation ecosystem. What else do we need to talk about from a national perspective? What's going on that can contribute to new ideas to get infrastructure in the hands of researchers?
I'll jump in. There's one topic that we haven't touched on as we think about the growing importance of compute at the edge and making sure that we can connect compute at the edge to maybe mid-scale on-prem all the way to cloud, and to do that seamlessly. And very importantly, as we again think about that connection to the physical world, there's again, large initiatives emerging as we think about the important role that AI plays in accelerating science. And that will bring together in different ways the experimental physical world through closing the experimental loop and driving the future of autonomous labs. And all of these are requiring very sophisticated ability to interconnect all of these different environments together and across the country and across the world.
That was a good plug for Cloud Labs.
It is a good plug for Cloud Labs.
If only you had one. Yeah. Yeah. Let me just say one of the things. There's no shortage of scientific opportunity going forward. I mean, NSF we're building scientific tools now that you can't actually that require AI. For example, the Vera C. Rubin telescope that we just brought online. It's a partnership between NSF and DOE. We built the telescope, DOE built the camera. It's an amazing camera. This thing's a time machine because it looks back at light that, from billions of years ago. But we get 800,000 alerts a night. If you were an astronomer, your pager would go off if you had a pager, sorry. It would go off 800,000 times a night, and you can't analyze that data anymore. So that's, and this thing's been in progress for 5 or 6 years. We're only going to build more things like that. We were getting a briefing on plasma physics, and people were saying, look, we're going to need AI to control these lasers that we're going to be building to do all this research. So, within a few short years or now, everybody's going to be an AI researcher in some way because we will all use it. And I think that's exciting. We have to embrace it, and we need to, and we really need to lean into it.
So that really anticipated my next question: is what does success look like in this enterprise at universities with artificial intelligence over the next 5 or 10 years? How should we measure ourselves as a community going forward? And again, what does success look like?
Well, I can tell you what the vision I have. One that all the states are producing AI literate students. Their economies are bolstered on the same technological footing as the best in the world. Their institutions are on the same footing. That the AI age is fed on data, and no one really should have a proprietary lock on a lot of the data. Yes, personal data, yes, but health data, what affects people's health or the environment, that stuff is being shared. That the higher ed community feeds itself, so all boats rise, I guess. I also, this is a little orthogonal, but maybe not. I actually think it's high time we start thinking of computational resources as infrastructure. Just like we think, the community provides water and power, that what part of society doesn't need computational resources, AI or otherwise? And that, communities and legislators and governors and the like start, actually, it's not just for the domain and the purview of researchers and academics and, big business, that it's really for everybody. So, success would also be a recognition that this is now an integral part of society and modern life.
I think there's also, there's the rate of innovation, right? Drug discovery, all the things that the ordinary person on the street really cares about to improve the quality of their lives. The other thing I would say is democratization of science and engineering, right? So that no matter where you are, you have access to the type of sophisticated tools that allow you to contribute to discovery and innovation, right? I think there's a tremendous power in that. There are a lot of colleges and universities who are not so able to participate in the discovery enterprise because they don't have access to the tools to do that. I think this agentic AI revolution has the opportunity to really change that, and I'm really excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, I think success is us, at least in the near term, is us shifting our thinking in terms of it's either this or AI is a crosscut, and I think like I said before, the more we can lean into unlocking the power of discovery in the short term, the better we can do. The second piece is continuing to energize the workforce aspects of the things that we're doing. Again, always having in mind, how are we helping to train the next generation of researchers? How are we making those opportunities available, not just at the four-year level or the graduate level, but at the community college level and pushing it all the way down? I think that's in fact, that's one of the things when we met with Jensen, he said we really need to lean into the education thing. I think he said we need to make sure kids understand AI because they're going to be the ones that teach their grandparents how to use it, And then he told me to keep my subscription to AI. He said it was well worth the $20 a month.
So we have time for one or two questions. Max, can you help out? There's an eager hand right here. I can see that through the bright lights.
I can't see anything.
And please introduce yourselves.
Hello? Okay.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Patricia McManus. I am the program coordinator and professor for HCC, Houston City College, AI and Robotics program. First of all, thank you for mentioning colleges, because we feel that we are suffering a lot, like we were talking about resources. This is something that we don't have. I think my students do all their labs using free tier of Colab, because we can't get compute, and HCC, IT department is this, let alone in, AI in the IT, so the whole of the college don't understand the needs. Is there anything, like NSF, know that we are on the National AI Consortium consultants with Maricopa and Miami-Dade, so we've been doing a lot in educating other colleges. So we need help.
Yeah, I'll just take that since you look, we agree with you. We need we need to create more of these partnerships between community colleges, all colleges. And as I mentioned before, that's one of the things that we're trying to do with these, specific with some of our regional innovation engines. The other thing I'll say, the other thing that is a little bit exciting is we're focusing very much on AI for education. We're part of the White House's AI for Education task force. It's largely focused at least at the K through 12 level, but some of the things that are coming in, I think we're about to hit a new era for availability of technologies to use AI to actually improve the quality of education. I know Teresa and her, sorry, this is not a plug for you.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that are coming that I think are really going to have an opportunity, like it's going to improve things for colleges like yours in terms of access to teaching resources.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the co-investment model, we see incredible energy from philanthropists. So I believe what you were probably referring to is the Gates Foundation made the largest gift, $55 million, to establish a affiliate called Learn Via, and these are AI-enabled cognitive tutors. And as that launched with over 20 partners with major colleges and community colleges across the country that are deeply engaged. On the infrastructure side, again, the ability to scale with state investment, federal investment, philanthropic investment, and industry investment, that energy is aimed at ensuring that there's access, as Chris pointed out, to the broad community, K through 12, colleges, universities. And so I think that the investment is really driven to make these resources broadly available.
Okay, let's have another question, please.
Yeah, Gobet Advincula here. I'm with the University of Tennessee, so a little, not a plant, but anyway. Chris, thank you. Fellow Gator here. Yeah. Really love that story with the University of Florida. So my question really resonates with the last question and the points made by Teresa and Deb, in that of democratization. And really, what I realize is that we talk about the capital, you have the infrastructure, computer, but at this level, what we really need is make it more and more available for more and more domains to use it to come in. And so, with that in mind and bringing all the databases and creation of databases from each domain, my question really is, what can public-private partnerships look like in that level of making it more open? So.
Yeah, I'll just, the initial, I ended up writing a white paper that sort of, in large respects captured the Florida experience as a prescription for how to do this. But, participating in the initiative would say that the community college has the exact, probably, if it's a homework assignment, it's free. And who's paying for that exactly? Well, some of the philanthropists, maybe have dictated terms. You get this money if you'll do this, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of arm twisting needed. Maybe it's state funding, maybe it's university or university consortia funding. The recognition that this is a pipeline, if your end goal is employment and a strong economy, that it starts in kindergarten and goes all the way through every level of education, whether it's high schools, vocational schools, community colleges, universities, postdoc, it runs the gamut. And you got to support all, you just brought up, the size of an IT department. What small business has an IT department that can run a supercomputer or manage, technology that's changing at the pace that we're seeing today? So I think there's just great recognition, and whatever the funding model, whatever the acquisition or the model that's used to access these technologies, there's just great recognition that it's got to be broad, It's got to be, kind of universal. It's got to be affordable, and it's got to lead to, a employed population, to make this sustainable.
So I think we're out of time with that. Is there one more? Okay. Max says there's another question, please. Last question.
Tim DeFato, University of Florida at the Digital Worlds Institute. So another plug.
I did not
go
plan.
Gators. Thanks again, Chris. For everyone else, what does it look like for the importance of interdisciplinary engagement? I know STEM, it's very important, right? But engaging our friends in the humanities, we bring together arts, engineering, business, journalism, communication. The hard part for them is translating output. So Chris, you're going and talking about getting partnerships and investment. What's the actual output pitch to them long term? It's easier when I work with my friends in engineering, more challenging when I think of the applied humanities and the output. So
I would say our Gen AI faculty fellow program, much more engagement from disciplines outside computer science and engineering. So the faculty in the humanities, the social sciences, the arts, the law, some of the professional disciplines, really interested in knowing what AI is, how they can use it, how it's going to change their industry, how it's going to change their discipline. So that actually was surprising to me. By far the largest buy-in is from the non-STEM faculty.
Yeah, it's been really interesting when we've talked to many of the high-tech companies. They are elevating the importance of the social and behavioral sciences, the arts and the humanities. So there's a tremendous demand signal from industry across the board. I'll also put a plug in for an AI Institute on societal decision-making that brings together decision scientists with social and behavioral scientists, because at the end of the day, we need those teams to come together so that we are making the best decisions that are really going to drive an impact in the world.
And I'll just say we've got a program that we're going to be launching before too long. It's called Tech Labs. We realize that we need to put together teams that can solve challenges, and they're going to have to pull together these interdisciplinary groups. Like, rather than us picking winners and say, okay, you need to get this number of social scientists and answer this problem here, and you build the team to do that. And that's a bit of a different approach for NSF, but we've got a lot of excitement around it. The administration likes it very much because it's going to allow us to build these interdisciplinary groups around answering a question that's explainable to people. They say, why did you do this? Well, we're trying to solve this problem over here. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's thank our fabulous panelists again. So I think it's clear this is a really important issue, and it's an urgent topic that we're able to move forward. So let's keep the conversation going.